This is part 2 of my interview with Imari Walker. Again, she is one of my inspirations, mentors, and advocates as a science communicator. And I hope that you can finish this episode to learn more about her science and other things that we discussed in this episode. Stay tuned.
What was it? One of your earlier questions was, how did I choose my field for graduate school? I don't think I got to that part. So I knew I wanted to be either a master's or a PhD student, but I didn't know in what. I studied oceanography. I wasn't an engineer by profession. So I went on a trip to French Polynesia, Tahiti, which Cal Nerds paid for me to be able to do that. And it was a full research project. It was like a master's thesis combined into one semester, where you have a project, you have a committee of 4 professors, and then you also have 3 graduate students overseeing it. And you go through the vetting process of like, this is the proposal you write, is it appropriate? You have all 7 of them, and then along with your 12 or 20 other colleagues that are writing proposals, you review it as a group as to, is this a good sound research thesis? And then you go about doing that work, and then you present it and you write a paper and publish it in the Berkeley archives. Wow. So that was like, for research experiences, that was great for me to understand like every step of the way. But it was difficult being a field scientist. And so that was something new. And it made me realize that some of my colleagues were actually getting sick from the water. Wow. And I was like, okay, well, I don't like doing this. I don't like being in this place. I have island fever. What do I need to do to like, put myself in a better position so I don't have to have this situation happen again? And then, wow, this is really interesting. Like, what are the water quality issues on the island? Not just for my colleagues, who come from a status of privilege, but for the other islanders. And like, so I think that opened my mind up a little bit more to public health and environmental engineering. So that was still around my senior year of college. And that was when I decided I'm going to be an engineer. So I took an extra year to take a few extra courses and try and understand what that meant. So it was intense, taking more math, more engineering, like, whew. But that was like, yes, I'm doing water. That is it.
So you found what your real interests were, and that's something that also resonates with me with my research journey, because I also started in antibiotic research and pivoted to environmental engineering because of the water aspect. Just seeing myself in your story. So I want to move on to the second half of the interview, which is, how does your research impact society at large? I think many people are, that's where as scientists we could be a little bit better at explaining to the public how what we do is also important for them. And so I'd really like you to speak on that.
Yeah. Well, you wake up every day, you pick up your plastic covered phone, yes. You turn on your plastic light switch, yes. And you maybe grab a glass of water and either, maybe it's glass, maybe it's plastic. We interact with plastic in so many different ways every day, and some of those things stay in our household for long periods of time, and some end up getting thrown away into our environment. So not only just the question of like, oh no, like the turtles, like they're getting hurt by all of the plastic bottle holders that we're throwing out, but even just like our human environment of, okay, our carpets are plastic, our furniture is plastic, the dust in our air, at least 30% of it is plastic that we're inhaling, or a baby's crawling on the carpet and ingesting just naturally. There's not only that, but it's also in our food. So I think society should care a lot about how all plastic is disposed of, and how much we're, consuming so much, especially with Amazon packaging. There's all kinds of plastic that comes with that that's unnecessary. I mean, it's just to protect your products, but so I would say that at least my contribution to understanding the plastic problem is like, what is the environmental impact of these chemicals associated to plastic? And, that can always be correlated to human impact or human health impact, even if it's like, oh, these chemicals don't affect our human body, but what if they do affect the organisms in our food web? That can destroy ecosystems. That can cause huge problems to us on a larger scale than just directly impacting, or causing cancers. So those things actually haven't been studied well enough for human health effects, but we do know that there are effects on the environmental side.
Exactly. And I think as environmental scientists, we need to, speak to the public about how the total environment in the end affects us.
Yeah.
Because we're a part of the ecosystem as well. So, and we really need to get the public to see the importance of maintaining a healthy environment.
Yeah, it's like the same concept as like climate change. Like, oh, it doesn't affect us like over here right now. Well, okay, maybe you're in the northern hemisphere where you might be benefiting a little bit more from getting more rainfall versus, when you go a little bit south, they are actually having droughts. And like people, there's a thing called climate migration. And so you may not be feeling it, but there are other people feeling the effects. Even if we even go closer to home, like Arizona, where they're getting record high temperatures, and like some people don't have, strong enough air conditioning units, and because of the pandemic, they can't go anywhere else to get, a safe place to stay. And so there are stories of people dying in their homes because it's not safe because it's so hot. So, we gotta think a little bit more outside of our bubble and think about just the well-being of, humankind and our environment.
So, you study food, additives to plastics in particular, and how they, leach into water.
Yep.
Are there any additives that kind of intrigue you the most as like, wow, this is in everything, or
there's two in mind. The one that comes to mind almost always is BPA, bisphenol A, because I think a lot more of the public has heard of that, or they've noticed water bottles that say BPA free, or like children's toys that say BPA free. And I think that's very misleading because they usually replace it with a different kind of bisphenol, like bisphenol F or BPS. And those studies have been showing that sometimes they're more toxic than the actual BPA. So, thinking about compound classes, like if they have almost the same structure, why continue to put them in these products? Because it's an easy fix, or because you don't think you're going to get caught and you can make a profit in the meantime. So that one always kind of gets to me because that's what I studied, BPA, at least for my first dissertation chapter. But another one are phthalates. There's just like bisphenols, there are phthalates, and they are also problematic. Like bisphenols are like endocrine disruptors, and phthalates have been known to be also problematic. And in California, there's Prop 65, where if you enter a building like a hotel, there's usually a sign that says, warning, there may be chemicals in this area that are dangerous to pregnant women and reproductive health and possible carcinogens. And those phthalates are some of the chemicals that are the reason for Prop 65. And it's interesting that you get that warning for California buildings, but you don't get that warning for a bottle that you're drinking out of, or any of the other plastic that you're interacting with. So those are definitely chemicals that I think about pretty often, or at least classes of chemicals.
Yes. I like that you brought those up, and the classes of compounds, because of I guess it's in media, it's easier to depict science as like good or bad, the binary, but in what we experience as researchers is that there are nuances, and the bigger picture is a lot more complicated.
Oh yeah. I mean, how many companies have green chemists, you know? Most people are just saying, is this a good fix for what you need? Like, not like, how does this affect you? You know, so that's hard.
Awesome. I really love that you brought that up. Lastly, I going through your CV, I was intrigued. Do you you have to have a Master's of Science title as well as a dissertation title? How does that work?
So for my PhD program, we have 3 different examinations. The first one is the qualifying exam, and so they test you on your knowledge of your coursework, and then they want to see if you know how to kind of write a research proposal. It doesn't have to be anything that you're actually doing, but most people at least try and do it. And that happens around a year and a half in. And then your second examination is the research proposal defense. And so this is where you show off how much work you've already done and your exact plan on how to graduate and finish. And so that occurs usually around your end of your third, start of your 4th year of your PhD. And so around then is when you also have the opportunity to apply for a master's. Because you've already kind of completed the work necessary for a master's to count. And so some people decide to just, go for it and ask for that examination as well. And it is really more of a formality because you kind of did all the requirements to your first exam. So all they have to do is kind of sign the paperwork. So it's, I think it's just something if you want to have, they'll do for you. So I said, why not?
Yeah, awesome. I like that. All right, so I don't want this video to be too long because I want many people to watch it. So before we go, is there anything that you would like to say, any common misconceptions in academia or as a scientist that you'd like to bring forward right now and say before we end?
Oh man, that could be a whole nother video in itself. You could have like a whole panel of like graduate students talking about misconceptions.
I might do that.
I always think back to my grandma because she's like, "Oh, are you still in classes?" Like, I think most people don't understand what a PhD is.
Yes.
So I think that's the largest misconception that they like. Yes, we are graduate researchers and students, but this is a job.
Yes.
We are paid, especially as engineers, to continue to push the boundaries of science and research. And so it may not be the exact 8 to 5 job that you imagine. It could be 8 to 8, 7 days a week. You never know. So the work-life balance thing may not. Sometimes is feasible, sometimes it's not.
It's not. Yeah. Depends on where you are in your research, in your writing, and
I mean, maybe the first year or two was a solid 8 to 5 days a week, but things progress. So just like thinking about PhDs do a lot of work and we spend a lot of time thinking and trying to initiate those thoughts and analyze them. And so I think people undervalue the work or just don't understand. How much goes into getting this and going for the final stretch of getting a PhD.
Oh yes, that's great. I love that advice and your knowledge sharing.
So thank your PhD student.
Yeah.
Ask them if they're hungry.
Yes.
Send them a care package.
Yes. My parents have not sent me a care package in years now. So.
Hey, our seminars have ended. Graduate students' only food source is going to different workshops on campus.
Exactly. We need some food here.
Love it. I love it.
Yes.
Yeah. I'll send y'all a P.O. box.
Yes. All All right, thank you so much, Imari. I'm going to attach your channels to my end screen, and I'm going to Is there anything else before we end?
If anybody's looking for more information about exactly what my PhD projects are, I do have a video called, Getting a PhD in Environmental Engineering, so you can check that out. And I also have a Twitter and an Instagram called Calamari93. So I'm sure Adam can add that as well if you all want to talk and chat more. So yeah, thank you for this opportunity, Adam.
Awesome. Thank you again for agreeing to be in this video.
No, happy to support. We got to uplift each other.
Yes. All righty. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for watching the completion of my interview with Imari Walker. Please like this episode and subscribe to the channel if you want to learn more about other scientists, academics, and science communicators that I'll be interviewing in this style.